So, I've been really trying to main Reaper this season. I mean, he's my favorite character, has been for quite a while. I've kind of gone in between playing him and not playing him in competitive because some metas he's good, some he's bad. But right after getting a really nice buff just a while ago, I decided again, I'm going to play him this season. But I keep running into the problem that is, I really can't ever play him. And essentially every single game, I lock in and 2 to 3 other DPS mains instantly lock in their character. And I'd like to kind of harken back to the past, where in Season 3 and Season 4, where I used to, insta-lock Reaper and play him, that wasn't really how it worked. I mean, there was a lot more people playing a lot more roles, or at least being willing to somewhat fill. That's not really how it works anymore, at least in any of my games. Sometimes, I'd say maybe a fourth of my games, I can just lock them in, it'll work fine, we'll be in a good team comp. But right now, a lot of the times, it feels like I just can't main DPS. And I feel like some other people might have other feelings like that. And, I'm not going to feel too bad for DPS players. It is the most coveted role. It is still the best way to wake up. It still is the thing that, yeah, people do want to play and have always wanted to play. But right now, there's that problem and quite a few other problems I want to talk about to why mainly DPS, I think, kind of sucks right now in Overwatch competitive, at least compared to the past. Again, I would like to say that in competitive, yes, DPS still is probably the best way to rank up. But ranking up isn't the only part about playing Overwatch. There's a lot of other facets to the game. Now, I guess talking about, picking your hero and actually getting your role as a DPS main, yes, you can sometimes get it. And sometimes, again, you will get good team comps. But I feel like in the majority of cases, if you want to play with a good team comp that fits together, and you want your teammates to be playing their best heroes, I mean, you're kind of going to have to be forcing somebody else off of their role. And if you're wanting to be nice like me some games, it just makes so that it feels like you can almost never get your role. And one thing that I guess kind of, I don't know, for me personally makes me a little more mad about this is that sometimes, I'll go game after game, never getting the character I want to play, whatever, that's fine. I'm the one deciding to fill. But then I finally get on my character, finally get on my role, then he's hard countered, Pharah, Widowmaker, all these other picks that I can't do way too much about. I don't know, as every single role, of course, there are counters, but when you take so much time just trying to get a good team, trying to get a good role, trying to finally fit in, and then you still can't play your hero even in that situation, yeah, I don't know, that can be a little annoying as a DPS main, depending on what DPS you want to play. Now, continuing from there, I'm going to say that if you are a person that just always wants to play DPS, Junkrat one trick, as I've been seeing, just a lot of those just randomly popping up, and you're going to play Junkrat no matter what your team comp is. As far as looking at them, most of the time you actually can get about a 50% win rate, which I guess is fine. I mean, you can pick them every single game, no matter the team comp, and win 50% of your games and lose 50% of your games. I've seen like literally 7 different Junkrat 1 tricks with almost no time on anyone else and all with around 49 to 52% win rates. I think the problem about this is that, I mean, you're kind of going to be stuck there, and an alternative is to, play another role, which again, I think it's probably a good alternative, but if you are someone that just wants to play your favorite role with your favorite heroes, and a lot of times, right now at least, you're going to kind of be screwed, and it is going to be a little hard to rank up unless you have another fill hero that you can really do to help out your team, which you probably should, but for a lot of people that, again, just want to play their hero, yeah, that kind of sucks right there. Now, another thing I should mention right here is something that, I don't know, kind of hits home for me, and that is that it's really hard to get time to actually practice your hero right now. And in the past, again, let me talk about like Season 3 or 4, I decided to pick up Reaper. That's the season I started playing him. I played him on, I think, my alternate account that was actually how I ranked in my main account. I got him all the way to, I think, what was it, Masters in like 8 hours, doing really well, having a lot of fun with him, had a lot of practice, and then I decided to, kind of stop, played him on my main account, had some good times, whatever. But I got a lot of hours of practice to learn him in a row, and it made me get quite a bit better. But right now, it's not really like that. You can't really pick your DPS hero, go in, practice as him, because even if you do get in a game, a lot of the times the practice is going to be pretty useless because, I mean, you're playing only against other DPSs as a DPS every single game with really bad team comps. Hard to learn how to position, hard to learn how to do anything other than, I guess, flank and frag. And while those are important things to know, there's a lot more to Overwatch that you can't really, I guess, learn when your team comp is really terrible. And I guess something else about practicing is that it's kind of hard to get in any practice as this role. Again, if you are a person that's like me that will actually feel if your team comp's awful. Because I mean, you could be playing that role, or you could have the person with only DPS hours playing that role, or the person with a Smurf account that has huge amounts of win rates, like an 85% win rate with McCree on that role. Should you really be the one taking that, or should you leave it to someone else? I think that's something that a lot of people think about like me, that in the end, usually you just give it to somebody else, even if you were personally a person that actually wanted to play the role and have fun with that role. And that's another reason why I think it kind of sucks to play this role sometimes, or at least want to play it. For me this season, again, I've been wanting to play it, but I've been switching off more than not, which, I don't know, maybe that's just my problem, but I feel like it is kind of a big problem being pushed off the role so much. Now, again, back to you guys that won't get off your role. The option is to play triple or quadra DPS, and I'm going to say with some DPS that's actually pretty fun and a pretty okay idea. If you play Genji, Tracer, Doomfist, essentially any of the flankers, and then a few other characters like sometimes Pharah, sometimes Junkrat, sometimes that can be okay, and that can be pretty fun. You can just do a lot of mechanics or just kind of spam around. You might get a pretty high win rate if you get really good at them. But for a lot of the other DPS that really rely on having a more tanky team, or by having more setup like the majority of the hit scan, Reaper, Mei, a lot of other people, it can be not very fun for those players on your team to even play their role, because, I mean, I guess they can try to flank with these random characters or play in the front line with one other tank. Either way, it's not going to work way too well with them. And I think being a DPS main that does not play one of the flankers with two other flankers on your team kind of screws you over a lot and makes it not that fun to play that role. And then if you actually lose that game, I mean, it's going to be even less of a fun time. Losing is never fun, but with triple DPS, there's just so much flame. It's just so hectic. And honestly, I probably see a decent amount of wins with people playing triple DPS, but I don't see a good amount of people having way too much fun. And I know the majority of the times when I do it, I'm not having way too much fun. I switch, and yeah, that's a problem that I don't really think it fits in the other role. Most of the roles, yeah, I've never seen that problem when I play them, but yeah, with DPS, playing it this season, yeah, that's something that shows up. Now, I guess back to DPS itself right here, I do want to say that it's kind of difficult to play because it is essentially your fault if you lose the game. And even if it isn't really your fault, even if your tank positions really badly, which happens a lot, I mean, I'm a tank player, at least in the past seasons, I can really tell when you're out of position. Well, even if they do that, and even if they keep getting picked, it's your fault for not supplying enough damage, and your fault for not getting good enough ults, your fault for not protecting the supports. There's a lot of fault kind of being thrown to the DPS players. It's kind of like, I guess, you know, the jungler in League of Legends. Throw all the fault towards that guy. And yeah, I can see where a lot of it comes from, because the DPS role does have the highest chance to pop off. They have the best ability to get kills. They have, you know, they have a lot of just potential in their kits that a lot of the other roles don't have. But that can kind of suck, because when you're playing DPS and you can't pull out 100% of that potential, because either you aren't, you know, playing completely out of your mind, which is kind of unreasonable to ask for always, or if the enemy team just really focusing on you and stopping you from doing anything and defense matrixing you all the time, freezing you, McCreeing you, whatever. Yeah, I mean, getting that blame towards yourself can kind of suck. And really, even sometimes when it's not your fault, it's going to come anyways, and that's something you just kind of have to learn to deal with when maining DPS. And the final thing I want to say right here is that when you're playing this role, a lot of the times you will be stealing away somebody else's role. At least in my past 10 games, there have always been 3 DPS players, and if I decided to do that, I would be taking up Reaper as one of the DPS slots, and even if we played triple DPS, I'd still be stealing one of the other DPS players' roles. That kind of sucks, simply because you're going to have a player that doesn't really know what they're doing on another character, but as well, if you don't do amazing, that person is going to judge you to high heavens, and I think that's the worst thing. And honestly, if you're playing triple DPS, it's kind of weird, because you want to be in team chat, make good callouts, do all of that, but at the same time, if you're trying to main DPS and doing all this, you're probably going to have terrible team comps, you're probably going to not have the best time, and even though you need the extra communication that triple DPS really needs, you probably don't want to be in chat, because you probably don't want to hear all the flame that's going to start going around. I don't know, I just see a lot of flame that happens when I do this. And yeah, it's something that just kind of happens when you're playing this role. Now, I do want to end by saying this again. DPS is a good role to play. It's still a fun role to play, and there's been a lot of situations where I get onto that role, pop off, or maybe even don't, and we still win the game, and it's still a good time. And as well, I have had quite a few games where I go on Reaper. I'm not doing that amazingly at all, but my tanks are really popping off. They're making us win, and, you know, it's still a pretty fun time. DPS overall still is a fun role, and I understand why the majority of people like to play it the most. But do keep in mind, there aren't all just 100% positives. I guess as far as ranking up, maybe there are in a lot of cases. But as far as having fun, you know, there are some negatives that you kind of have to get over, I guess, if you want to really start climbing with this role and really start grinding out a lot of the time with this role. I personally haven't been able to really get past that barrier, but if you have any tips how to do that, I'd really like to hear those down in the comment section down below. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like or comment down below. Again, what I just asked. Press the subscribe button to see videos like this in the future. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.